Welcome everybody to this meeting of Mid-Suffolk District Council Cabinet. I'm Councillor Susie Morley, leader of Mid-Suffolk District Council, and I'm chairing this meeting today. May I remind you of some domestic arrangements? Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use. Please do not interrupt other speakers or hold separate conversations whilst others are speaking. If you're attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off, and that includes your laptops so they stop beeping when you get messages. And finally, we will be using e-voting for this meeting on the modern.gov app, so please could members make sure they're logged in and ready to use the app. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. I'm now going to move to the agenda, and I'm going to invite our interim monitoring officer, Ifti Ali, to speak regarding item 9, which is MCA/22/26. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Item 9 on page 43, there is the appendices that were attached to that are incorrect. That has been corrected now, but the appendices were to do with the same seal report, but for Baber District Council, not for Mid-Suffolk. We've corrected that now. Cabinet are fully aware of the change. Everyone's Cabinet has seen the new appendices. It's not new, in fact. It's part of an ongoing programme, so I'm quite content to continue with it. But if there's anyone here who hasn't seen the appendices, could they speak now, and we'll get a hand. So we've got some copies here, but they are in ModGov, and they're on there. Yeah, they're on the system.
The new ones are
yeah.
on ModGov.
Yes, they're on there. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say to members that they may have to refresh their agenda on modern.gov to get the new appendices. The agenda was updated this morning. Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absences has been received from Councillor Gould and from Councillor Brewster.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary, other registerable or non-registerable interests by members. Are there any to declare? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have to declare a other registrable interest for agenda item 10. That's paper MCA/22/27, insofar as I'm a council-appointed director of Mid-Suffolk Growth Limited. But after receiving advice from the monitoring officer, I'm advised that the dispensation given to councillors is extended to this meeting, so I intend to debate and participate in the vote as normal, but I'd be grateful if the interim monitoring officer could just confirm that. Thank you.
That's confirmed, yes.
Thank you very much. Item 3, MCA/22/14, is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of October 2022. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I've just noticed a couple of minor amendments needed in terms of some of the Cabinet's portfolios. So paragraph 46.3 should read Councillor Gould, Cabinet Member for Assets and Investment. And paragraph 48.3, referring to myself, also be Cabinet Member for Economic Growth. But otherwise, aside from those, I'm happy to propose those minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Flatman. Thank you. Governance Officer will now conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That's 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Item 4 is to receive notifications of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received.
Item 5, questions by councillors.
None received.
And item 6, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or the Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There are no matters referred, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, the forthcoming decisions list. Are there any comments on that? No, thank you. Item 8 is MCA/22/25, and this is the tenant engagement strategy. I'll invite the Cabinet Member for Housing to introduce this report. Thank you, Councillor Haddingham.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to introduce this report, MCA/22/25, which outlines our proposed approach to tenant engagement within housing, how we plan to develop our tenant engagement opportunities and priorities to enable efficient and meaningful engagement with our tenants in the form of our tenant engagement strategy for 2022 and beyond. The strategy has been developed with our tenants' insight following our tenant engagement survey exercise, where 1,092 tenants responded to the survey, which I'm sure you all agree is a fantastic response rate, and their responses have provided invaluable insight which has informed the developments of this strategy. The purpose of the strategy is to ensure our tenants are aware of the available opportunities to be able to hold us to account on performance, influence the way we do things, and be at the centre of our decision-making processes in ways that suit them. As part of our requirement to comply with the Tenant Involvement and Empowerment Standard, one of the consumer standards of the regulator for social housing, and our ambition to have a truly tenant-led housing service, we feel that this strategy underpins those commitments and focuses our direction of travel to ensure we have a good tenant-led governance structure in place. Following the adoption of this strategy and its associated delivery plan, work will be undertaken by officers to look at how we can recruit a representative range of tenants to a variety of roles laid out within the strategy, ensuring we're being both inclusive in terms of offering engagement and influence opportunities in both physical and virtual settings. Progress of the delivery plan will be monitored by the Tenant Board and portfolio holders for housing, as well as the strategy itself being reviewed at least annually, the results of which will be reported to all tenants. I would therefore like to propose recommendations to approve the strategy as in option 1 of the report and ask for a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Flatman?
Yes, Chair. I'm extremely happy to second this paper. I think it's been very well written, and it just shows that we take our residents' voice very seriously with Suffolk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flatman. Do we have any questions from Cabinet? Do we have any questions from any other members present? Councillor Wellham?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, one very brief question. Am I allowed to say, yeah, I welcome the strategy. I think it's well set out, so I think that's a good thing. My question is around those tenants who don't want to engage but want to complain. I mean, we've all got plenty of them, I'm sure. That they'll come to the member, but they won't go to a tenant board or engage in any other way. What steps are you taking to try to engage with those people, and in particular, people in sheltered accommodation?
Thank you for your question. I can answer at least part of it, as you know, as you well know, that people often like to get in touch with their actual representatives, and I'm afraid there's almost, you know, there's no way we can sort of stop them from ringing us.
Oh, no.
And obviously, you know, you're always free to get hold of me, and I can point you in the right direction of, you know, whose problem it might be, depending on what the problem is. But like I said, unfortunately, you know, that's always going to happen, and I can point you in the right direction for that. But as the sheltered housing aspect, I shall pass that on to David.
And if I can just also add, oh, sorry,
Okay, I just wanted to work out how that worked.
Gary.
Yeah, so in respect to complaints, we do have a housing complaints task force which has tenant representation on it, and all of our within the strategy there is a role for complaint champions as well. So we're hoping that we will be able to learn from the feedback that we're getting from tenants, and in a way that's their way of becoming involved with us. So it's almost capturing that silent voice if they don't want to sit on any of the formal panels or groups that we may set up. And what was the second part of the question, sorry? Oh, sheltered housing. So we're also, we are looking at how we can engage more regularly with our sheltered housing residents. But similarly, across all of our residents, we need to use all interactions with our tenants as opportunities for engagement. And actually, we've got an easier way of doing that within shelter because we've got a bit more of a captive audience with, you know, a lot of them having communal facilities, etc.
And if I can just add as well that all tenants, well not just tenants, but all residents have the ability to call our customer access point in Stowmarket and speak to somebody there if they want to make comments or complaints or compliments. Councillor Mansell?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make a comment and a question about the response rate. It's quoted as being 16% in the document, and I just wonder how that compares with other councils' sort of engagement and previous tenant engagement, and whether any allowance has been made in your decision-making, given that the 16% who responded are already engaging, and they're saying how they want to engage in the future, but it still doesn't capture the other 84% who aren't engaging at all, which is a bit of a worry. Thank you.
Councillor Haddingham?
Thank you. So I'm not, Dave will know this from the Housemark survey. I don't know if that's, that's something we can, if we can bring up, you know, to be compared with other councils, how that is, the response rate compares. So I'll pass it on to David, thank you.
Yeah, I don't have the figures right here and now, but I can. It is a good response rate, just from kind of my knowledge of the types of exercises that these are. But I can have a look into that and figure out what the average kind of response rate is for those across housing providers. It wouldn't just be local authorities; it would also be housing associations, etc. And in terms of capturing the silent tenant voice that I think you're referring to, there's a lot of work for us as officers to do in terms of the data that we hold on our residents and being able to use that data to ensure that you know, we know a lot about our residents and what they want or what they might need. So using that data is how we capture those silent voices that don't want to engage with us.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, I'll open this up for debate. Does anybody want to say anything on this item? Councillor Flatman.
I'd just like to say on behalf of all the members, our residents are, you know, we're their first line of contact if they're worried about something. So it's only natural that they will ring us and we can respond and pass on information and help where we can. And I think they think they'll get a quick response if they ask us. And I can assure you they do. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's safe to say that almost every member, regardless of which side of the chamber you sit on, this is one of our favourite topics of conversation, is how we look after our residents and our tenants. So it's, and this is a fantastic piece of work that's been done. We've been discussing it most of the summer, and it's a really well-written paper, and I'm really proud to that it's come forward. So thank you, Councillor Haddingham, and your entire team. So the recommendations is option 1, to approve the strategy in its current form and acknowledge the changing landscape of social housing regulations in terms of the significance of good tenant engagement. And I'm now going to ask the Governance Officer to conduct the vote.
Sorry, members, I think I have a technical glitch. Just one moment, please.
It's in blue, but I can't press it.
Yeah, I have the same problem. Just one moment. Yes, I think we'll take the vote manually, Chair, if that's okay.
Okay, we're going to take the vote manually. All Cabinet in favour?
That's 7-4, that's unanimous, Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much. So moving on now to item 8. This is MCA/22/26, the Community Infrastructure Levy Expenditure Programme for November 2022. I'm going to invite the Cabinet Member for Planning to introduce this report. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. Today we have 6 seal bids to consider, 4 for the Cabinet to actually decide on, and 2 to note. And the parishes affected are Thurston, Old Newton, Weatherden and Metfield. Excuse me. The first one, M21-09, is for Thurston Community College to increase pupil places from 1,500 to 1,650. The seal bid is just over 1.78 million and is collaborative spend with other funding coming from Section 106 monies, basic need funding and County Council borrowing, giving a total project cost of just over 2 million. Just a bit of information about Thurston College. It educates more children than any other school in Suffolk and has the largest catchment area nationally. The sixth form is in the top 10% of sixth form providers in England. This project relates to the second phase of the expansion of the Thurston Community College. The current capacity of the main Thurston campus is 1,500 places. This expansion project will take place in 2 stages, initially to increase to 1,650 places, which is the subject of this seal bid, and then to 1,800 places dependent on the rate of residential growth. The expansion will provide additional school places for 11 to 16-year-old pupils, and that will be in a new accommodation consisting of a single-storey standalone block to provide purpose-built teaching and science spaces. The proposal includes an additional science room, 6 class spaces, a prep room and toilets. The scheme is oven-ready, which requires SIL funding to be delivered so that the extension can be opened by September 2023. The SIL bid constitutes essential infrastructure under the Council's current infrastructure delivery plan and under the education section within the current infrastructure funding statement, and is recommended to Cabinet for approval. Second one is M22-06, which is for play facilities at Oak Crescent. This seal bid is for £100,000, representing 66% of the total project costs. Town Council are requesting this seal support to upgrade and develop the play area on the Oak Crescent playing field. The current equipment is outdated while some has been deemed unsafe and has had to be closed. The new apparatus will increase the usage of the site by providing equipment that can be used for a larger range of age groups. The project will provide new play equipment, including an in-ground trampoline, zip line, different types of swings for different age groups, toddlers to 5+, and multi-play climbing frame with slide. The project will also resurface the ground to ensure that the apparatus can be used all year long. The equipment will use new sustainable materials to ensure longevity, and it will ensure easier maintenance. With this new apparatus and overall upgrading, footfall will increase to the site. And this scheme again is oven ready with all other forms of funding secured, and the SIL bid is regarded as acceptable, and it's therefore recommended to Cabinet for approval. The next M22-12 extension to the Old Newton Village Hall. This is a SIL bid for £67,914 and represents 75% of the total project costs. The Old Newton Village Hall and Playing Field Committee are proposing to extend the existing Village Hall provision to enable the improvement of the current Village Hall. This part of the phased works will provide the Village Hall with new storage and bar space, along with the upgrading of current kitchen provision. With the extension to the existing building, the committee are hoping that this will attract additional bookings for functions such as weddings and parties. The proposed works will also improve the experience of users of the hall, including the under-5 playgroup, which use the hall regularly. The playgroup is currently the principal users of the building and provides a crucial service to the local growing community, and the extension will improve the storage facilities that they have access to. This amount of SIL funding is regarded as acceptable and is therefore recommended to Cabinet for approval. The final one for decision by Cabinet today is M22-15. This is for the Weatherden play area, and the bid is for £18,375.63, which represents 55% of the total project costs. The Parish Council is requesting SIL support to develop and relocate the new play area on Weatherden playing field. The project will provide new equipment, including a 4-tower multi-unit, a seesaw, resurfacing of the ground to enable the site to be used all year round, and the Parish Council will be providing new apparatus for younger children, which will increase the diversity of the equipment and overall footfall to the play area. Using sustainable materials will ensure longevity, and the equipment will ensure longevity of the equipment and will ensure easier maintenance. This scheme is oven ready with all other forms of funding secured, and the SIL bid is therefore regarded as acceptable and is recommended to Cabinet for approval. The ones for just noting are M2205, Woodlands Footpath. This is a delegated decision which has been approved and is for a Cabinet to note only. The SIL bid is for £5,000, represent 38% of the total project costs. The Moors Woodland Society are proposing to improve the user experience of the Moors Woodland. This has been achieved with different projects occurring at the same time. The SIL, now approved, will be assisting with the construction of a new user woodland footpath which runs through the forest. The path will be constructed using materials which will provide additional accessibility to people with disabilities and users who have difficulty walking, parents with pushchairs and toddlers. This will increase the overall users accessing the woodland and better the experience of people using it for physical activity. The improved path will connect different parts of the forest, it's hardly a forest, woodland, for example, the new picnic area and the car park. That's for noting. And finally, for noting, is M22-09, which is improvements to the St John's Meadow Play facilities in Metfield. This delegated decision has been approved and is for Cabinet to note. The sill bid is for £8,788.97 and represents 75% of the total project costs. The Metfield Parish Council, after consultation with local residents, is proposing to upgrade and provide additional equipment to broaden the age ranges that the play area caters for. And the Parish Council will achieve this by removing the current aging equipment and installing new improved apparatus, which includes a new play train, spring equipment, wavy mirror panels, and new ground surfacing to improve safety and ensure that the site can be used throughout the year. Using new sustainable materials to ensure the longevity and equipment will ensure easier maintenance. The recommendation to Cabinet under 3.1 of the report is to approve these bids and for Cabinet to decide and for Cabinet to note the delegated decisions on bids already made. And also to note and endorse in the report the still expenditure programme at Appendix A under paragraph 3.2. Thank you very much. I do look for a seconder, Chair, if anybody would like to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Flatman?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Any questions from Cabinet? Councillor Whitehead?
Thank you, Chair. This is probably a question for officers, I think, rather than the Cabinet member. But I just wonder what work is done to establish how much a parish council can afford to contribute. And the reason I ask that is because in similar projects and play equipment, Weatherden's contributing 15,000 on 33, which is 45% of the project. I is contributing 5,000 on 150,000, which is 3%. So I just, perhaps for any of the parish councils watching, I think, are doing a project how, to try and determine how much they need to contribute. And I know some parish councils, for example, use the Public Works Loans Board to finance these sort of projects. So if you just sort of explain, what sort of due diligence you do on the parish councils.
I think that level of detail is best answered by the professional lead officers. Thank you.
Thank you. We obviously do due diligence. That's not easy to say, but we do that with all sill bids. We have debated whether we should do, and I think it's not a terribly good use of term, but means testing where bids come forward from parish councils to see what can be afforded. And we debated that earlier on in one of our yearly reviews of the sill expenditure framework. And quite clearly, I think it may be the time now to take this forward in our next review, which we will be starting probably mid to end of November, because the amount of neighbourhood sill that we have been paying out twice yearly has been increasing. When bids come in, they come in from communities in a myriad of forms. Some of the items that are asked for are ineligible for sill funding. As you know, there is two thresholds in place, £100,000 maximum, and there must be, we mustn't give more than 75%. So we're always looking for collaborative fund, and these, quite a lot does come forward either from parishes or from neighbourhood sill, but I think we probably are at the point where we could debate that at member level and decide if we want to take a different approach. Thank you.
If I can just sort of come back, because it does feel, because there's such a divergence between those two, one of them seems a better poker player than the other, perhaps, when it comes to the money.
We do debate the sill bids with communities. They're all different, and so there's a lot of dialogue about them. We do prompt the use of neighbourhood sill. We do look at the disposition Some parishes coming forward have no money or very little money at all, and others have more, but they're actually on their own programme of delivery of infrastructure projects using their neighbourhood SIL. So they're trying to get, I suppose, the best contribution from us that they can get. So I think you're right, there is a big divergence at the moment, but we will debate that at the next review and see what the cross-boundary or cross-party members feel on that, and then bring that forward in the normal way.
Any more questions? Any questions from anybody else? Councillor Mansell?
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions about the Thurston Community College bid, one of which I think is maybe more directed at the Suffolk County Council representative that we have in the room. The first question is the ring-fenced fund, which comes from 7 of our mid-Suffolk parishes. How is that divvied up regarding each parish, because they're all vastly different sizes and obviously contribute more or less pupils to Thurston Community College? And my second question is, clearly Thurston having the largest catchment area in the country, vast tracts of it are in West Suffolk. So we've got a total cost of the project as being 2 million. But is that just the mid-Suffolk part of the project? Because presumably there will be some Section 106 money coming from West Suffolk, because lots of the pupils from Great Barton and the likes are there. They're not ours. So I hope we're not funding them. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, Councillor. I will refer the bulk of that, I would think, first of all to Christine, to the professional lead officer. I don't know which part you wish to comment on, Christine, but feel free to cover it all if you want to, or pass bits over if you also want to. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll start and then I'll share with our colleague. So in terms of how did we sort out the ring fencing funds for the Thurston Community College, as members will know, wherever possible we use ring fenced monies first before we use other monies, because we're ring fencing it for infrastructure which is required for growth. So in this particular case, there are 50 parishes that we counted up that form a catchment area for this. A lot of them are outside of mid-Suffolk, so there are only 21 parishes in mid-Suffolk and actually 3 parishes in Baber, the remaining being in West Suffolk, and there is a contribution from 5 parishes. I'm just going to see what the figure was. £184,595 comes from Section 106 monies, and those are all from West Suffolk, and they are captured because of growth that has taken place. So if we then looked to our ring-fenced monies for our 21 parishes in mid-Suffolk, and there were a total of 5 parishes within the catchment area which contributed pupil places. By that I mean there was growth causing pressure for pupil places, and we took a proportionate contribution from each of those parishes. So the ones that had much more pupil places being derived from growth paid more, and the ones that didn't paid less. Out of the remaining parishes, there were only 2 that had ring-fenced funds, so we took a much smaller proportion of contribution there, which I think was £3,753.05. I'm taking these figures from the technical assessment. And then because this is infrastructure which covers a wide variety of parishes, the remaining contribution, which was just over £500,000, came from the strategic pot. So that is how those funds have been constructed and how you see the seal bid being recommended for approval. I don't know if I've covered. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. As Christine's said, we would collect Section 106 contributions from every development within the catchment area of Thurston to put towards that two-phased expansion, if you like. So those developments, they may not have got approval yet in West Suffolk, such as I think there's one in Stanton. We've requested contributions for an expansion to Thurston, but obviously as that has not yet been approved, we haven't received those funds yet. Once those funds are received, we would then put them towards probably the next phase of the expansion, which then lessens the impact on the seal funding from Mid-Suffolk itself. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? No? Councillor Whitehead?
Sorry, just going forward on these parish contributions, would it be possible on the reports to show whether the parish contributions are coming from SIL or whether the parish contributions are coming from the parish precepts?
I'm sure we can put a little bit more information in your report if that is what members would like to see in terms of whether it's coming from neighbourhood SIL or whether it's coming from Public Works Loan Board or from the parish precept. Very happy to do that. We normally ask these questions in any event.
Thank you very much. So moving on to debate. Does anybody wish to debate this item? Okay. So the recommendations are that the SIL Expenditure programme and accompanying technical assessments forming appendices A and B, and which include decisions on these SIL bids for Cabinet to make and approve and to note, are as follows. M2109, M2206, M2212, M and N2215, and for noting M2205 and M2209. So I'm going to ask the Governance Officer to conduct the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. There are 7 votes for, and that's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Item 10, MCA/22/27 is the Elmswell Exemplar Housing Scheme. And I'm going to invite the Cabinet Member for Housing to introduce this report. Councillor Hadding.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to bring this paper to Cabinet, which sets out how an exemplar, sustainable, low-carbon housing scheme could be delivered in Elmswell. Earlier in the year, this council committed to developing housing that is truly sustainable through the adoption of the design guide and specification. This guide sets out the standards and aspirations for new homes that the council builds, while also demonstrating to others the standards of development that we expect in Mid-Suffolk. The land, owned by the council for the specific purpose of providing housing, could be used to deliver the first low-carbon scheme, demonstrating that we as a council are committed to delivering against the aspirations set out in the design guide for the benefit of the district and our residents. These homes would be sustainable by design, with a fabric-first approach providing increased insulation and low-energy designs to enable the properties to be sustainable to run, which is particularly important in the current time. The scheme can provide a mix of properties for much-needed social housing, such as affordable rent and affordable ownership, as well as homes to be sold on the open market. Plans would also focus on including planting to encourage biodiversity, including shared outdoor community spaces, and a community garden with water collection and planted buffer zones between new homes and existing neighbours. The scheme will be delivered by the Council's own development company, Mid Suffolk Growth Limited, a venture set up to enable the Council to deliver more new housing and meaning higher standards than profit margins that other developers would allow. The Council will, however, still look to achieve a modest return from the sale of the market homes, which can then be reinvested across the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Flatman.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councillor Whitehead.
Okay, happy to go first. Just a question again is to do with the under the options considered, and option 2 is called disposal of land, and it explains that HRA own the land, obviously, and to dispose of it on the open market might need the Secretary of State's approval if it's been determined as not being suitable for housing for use as another kind. So I can understand that's like option 2A, but there is, I think, presumably an option 2B as well, which is to dispose of it potentially as to a third-party housing builder, and I assume that would not need Secretary of State approval to give a capital sum. So is that right? I mean, I just think that option 2 is perhaps a little, doesn't quite clarify the various kinds of disposals. It just concentrates on a disposal for non-housing purposes.
Thank you, Councillor. As this land is owned by the HRA, any disposal for any purpose would require Secretary of State approval, so whether it's for alternative purposes or for housing by a third party, is my understanding.
So the Secretary of State has to approve the disposal to the general fund, is that right?
So the development as proposed would be undertaken jointly with the general fund and the HRA. The point of the HRA is that the funds are then ring-fenced so that those funds can then be retained within the HRA, and we'd also be delivering affordable housing as well as market housing. So I don't believe Secretary of State, can't get my words out, approval would be required in that instance.
Any more questions? Councillor Wellham.
Thank you, Chair. I've got several questions, but I think the answers could be quite short, so it shouldn't take too long. There have been some costs incurred to date in bringing the scheme to this stage. Can we be told what level of expenditure has already been incurred? Do you want me to go through all of them, or should we take them one at a time?
Perhaps one at a time.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. The costs to date have been around about £180,000.
I told you the answers would be short. The land is owned by Mid Suffolk District Council. Is the land value included in the 15 million cost of the development? Because obviously it's part of the cost of the development, the value of it.
Thank you. No, that's only the build cost for the development, not the land value.
I just wondered if, I mean, it may well be that we can't be told in public what the land value is. So, you know, if that's not available, either in public or to anyone else, then perhaps I could be told that outside of the meeting. Thank you. Now, looking at the cost, it's about around £15 million, which works out at £300,000 per unit, which seems very high. Even given the approach, which is quite rightly being taken, is there a breakdown of the costs which show how the 15 million is split up? For instance, split between consultants and design fees, separately construction, and separately any other costs? Because there could well be some marketing costs for the market properties?
Yes, Councillor, there are those costs, but we didn't think it was appropriate to put those costs in an open paper, bearing in mind we will need to tender for these works in due course. So more than happy to share that breakdown with you outside of this meeting.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Councillor Mansell as the ward member for Elmswell to speak on this item as well. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a really exciting project for Elmswell, and I'm very pleased that you've picked Elmswell to put this exemplar scheme, and the fact that it's going to be really sustainable, environmentally sound. But there are some issues with this particular proposal. Now, we're all aware that there is a big need for affordable homes throughout the district and in Elmswell. The Elmswell Parish Council have set up a community land trust, and they are working towards providing 12 affordable dwellings on what was the old behind the old tavern on School Road. The community land trust is quite happy to work with Mid Suffolk Growth Company towards a cooperative scheme at the tavern site. And this particular land that we're talking about I was made aware last night that the red line area that you've got in your papers does not all belong to Mid Suffolk. A part of it has been sold off to one of the nearby residents, and I hope that is going to be cleared up before we get any further. But anyway, that's beside the point, really, because I'm sure that's a technical tweak which can be changed on a map. Now, Elmswell does actually have quite a lot of building developments going on, and there is one proposal which is currently to go to planning next month, I think, for some affordables at the old bacon factory site, and there's affordables at Borley Crescent already being built. So I would like to just make the Cabinet aware that Elmswell Parish Council put forward a scheme to provide extra primary school places within Elmswell itself, rather than having to bus them over to Woolpit, which is the current proposal. So the current school in Elmswell is insufficient to meet all the committed development in Elmswell. So the Parish Council have put forward this proposal, which has involved some formal meetings with the school's planning manager, our friend Mr Mumford, who was here earlier, the county councillor, myself and Councillor Geek, and Planning and Building Control. Emily Attack and Holly Brett have been made aware of this initiative, that the Parish Council think that it is an ideal site to put a school. So the Parish Council think that a 6.25 acre plot added to a 1.14 acres to slightly to the west, adjacent to the Church Road, together with 1.5 acres of Suffolk County Council land, which is where the old primary school was, just to the north. The aggregated area accessed from Church Road would allow for a 420-place pupil school in the grounds, allowing adequate formal and informal recreation.
Councillor Mansell, most of what you're saying does not directly relate to the item on the agenda.
Yes, it does. It's about the piece of land. We want to put the school here instead of you making for housing.
Appointing Mid Suffolk Growth and the funding stream.
Yeah,
this is not a planning committee.
No, I know it's not a planning committee. It's that we in Elmswell do not think that this land should be. If you let me come to finish, I think we ought to explore the other options before Mid Suffolk, before the Cabinet make this decision. Right. So anyway, we don't have enough primary school provision in Elmswell. The Parish Council think that this particular site would make a really good site for a primary school, so I think that it would be better if we deferred this decision about what to do with this land until these other options have been fully explored by Mid Suffolk.
Thank you, Councillor Mansell. Emily, would you like to comment on any of that?
Thank you. Only to say that the next stages of this development include further engagement with the local community And so I'm sure we will address that issue or discuss that issue further as we move the proposals further forward. Obviously, part of our engagement will be about then developing up a planning application, which again, will come through the planning committee system as well. So I think really it's just the point that we've had initial engagement with the parish council, and we are expecting to undertake much wider engagement and consultation with the parish and the residents of Elmswell. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to move to debate. Does anybody wish to comment? Councillor Richardson?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of brief comments from me. I just kind of really wanted to emphasise that this, I think, really is a prime opportunity to deliver affordable housing in excess of what a private developer would ordinarily provide for a site of this size. And I know obviously there is a modest profit associated with this scheme, but I think it really is that social and environmental benefit that is really that value to the community is really the most important part of the scheme. So I'm very happy to support it and will be voting in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I totally agree. This is land that is owned by our HRA. It can only be used for housing. And this is the best way of delivering affordable housing for our residents. I also will be supporting this application, and we will keep an eye on the costs. We're well aware that costs are a bit unpredictable in the current climate, so we will keep an eye on the costs going through the growth company. So I'm now going to ask the governance officer to Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. As part of the debate, I'd like to say that I think it's an exciting and commendable project, and it's great that we can do an exemplar scheme, as a council to show what can be done here. Just wanted to raise one or two concerns with my sort of finance hat on, because I know the paper was written several weeks ago, and things have been changing quite dramatically in the last few weeks. I mean, everybody seems to blame this trust, but I think the reality is that the economics of the whole country are changing. Base rates have doubled from 1.5% to 3% in the last 5 or 6 weeks, and off the back of that, experts are forecasting quite drastic reductions in house prices, albeit in the short term. And I believe this is a project which could take 3 years to come to fruition, so perhaps we'll be at the far side of that dip by that time. But I'm just a bit concerned on recommendation 3.4, which is approving the capital. I just wonder if it's have some sort of subject to some sort of feedback mechanism before the final drawdown of the funds, sort of approval in principle. But I think we need to see more costings, the tendering process, the planning process, and the conditions that come out of that. I just wonder what sort of feedback mechanism we can have to approve it in principle, but still have some control as a cabinet.
Emily, is that possible?
We do report through to cabinet briefing and to the holding companies on a quarterly basis. From Mid-Suffolk Growth's perspective, they do need to have the funds secured in order to move forward. In reality, as with all developments, we have gateways, so that we review at each gateway whether, what the most appropriate next steps are. So my recommendation would be for the Cabinet to agree the recommendations that are set out in the report, but we will of course continue to keep Cabinet briefed in terms of the progress of this project, and should any matters change in the way that we would with any project.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy with that. So I'm now going to ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That is 7 votes for, and that's unanimous.
Thank you very much, everybody. So the date and time of the next meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 5th of December at 10:30. Meeting's closed.